Now, the armed forces in Myanmar have seized power and declared a state of emergency, detaining the elected leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, and other senior members of her ruling party. The military said they'd staged the takeover because of what they called voting fraud during last November's elections, which Suu Kyi's party won by a landslide. World leaders have expressed their outrage at the coup, with the US President Joe Biden threatening sanctions and pledging to defend democracy around the globe. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Jonathan Miller, reports.
The new boss is a familiar face. He's the old boss, Commander-in-Chief of the Myanmar military, General Min Aung Hlaing, war crimes suspect and currently under investigation by the United Nations for overseeing genocide. He was to have retired this year, but his retirement plan involved a coup d'etat, placing his country on the fast track to pariah status. Déjà vu. In pre-dawn raids, newly elected parliamentarians and activists were rounded up at gunpoint. This, a Facebook Live, streamed just after 5 a.m. An MP escorted from her home by soldiers, her husband pleading with them. No. Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi and her cohort of democratically elected politicians back in the army's crosshairs. Military TV announced that General Min Aung Hlaing was taking over. Extreme steps were necessary, it said, because of voter fraud. The general had stopped the steal. State TV went off-air before broadcasting military propaganda videos. Phone lines went down, as did the mobile internet. Roadblocks in Naypyidaw, the capital, and in Yangon. Military vehicles on the streets. For Burmese, a prelude to inevitable sanctions and isolationism. Junta fans celebrated the general's success. In a stroke, the humiliation of the military's front party at the polls had been undone. In the confusion, panic buying. And as they queued at grocery shops, the National League for Democracy uploaded a statement in Aung San Suu Kyi's name to Facebook, urging Burmese to protest against the coup.
I feel the army has assaulted people with this coup on the civilian government, elected by our people. Our country is just a bird learning to fly. Now the army has broken our wings.
And as the Western world woke up, condemnation filled the Twitter sphere.
The leaders of the world are united in their revulsion of this illegal act, and that the international community is committed to working together to see that this does not stand.
China, though, was more equivocal. A foreign ministry spokesman said Beijing had noted the situation and, as a friendly neighbour, hoped political and social stability could be maintained. In next-door Thailand, a general who himself had come to power in a coup d'etat sang from the junta hymn book. It's their business, he said. It's their domestic issue. Thai anti-dictatorship protesters joined Burmese demonstrators outside the Myanmar embassy in Bangkok, their chants echoing the calls of years gone by. Free Aung San Suu Kyi.
Autocracies are all the rage out here, and as the Thais know only too well, dictatorships have a habit of sticking around. The last time the military seized power in Myanmar, elections didn't happen for 20 years.
Those who dared to hope for the dawn of a democratic era across in Myanmar view this regression as a profoundly dark moment. The Bangkok anti-dictatorship protest was duly ended in time-honoured fashion. More than 30 years has passed since Aung San Suu Kyi was first denied a landslide election victory by the military. She languished under house arrest for 15 years. The goddess of democracy, wings broken. Finally, 5 years ago, she took her crown, elected to form a quasi-democratic government. But her credentials were irreparably tarnished by her failure to condemn atrocities committed by General Min Aung Hlaing's forces on Rohingya Muslims. She even defended the army's actions in The Hague.
Surely, under the circumstances, genocidal intent cannot be the only hypothesis.
For this, she earned opprobrium abroad, but popularity at home. Now Aung San Suu Kyi's a victim once again. Her tormentor, General Min Aung Hlaing, perhaps apprehensive he'd be marched off to The Hague, decided he'd had more democracy than he could stomach.
Earlier, I spoke to Yang Hee Lee, who's the former UN Special Rapporteur to Myanmar. I began by asking her what she thinks the military's game plan is.
I think it's the chief commander, Min Aung Hlaing, who is the mastermind of this coup. He wants to gain additional power because he will have to step down in June. But right now, he has a lot of investments. He has a lot of hold in economic holdings, and his family has a vast majority of military connected investments in companies. And if he steps down, he wants all of his assets to be protected. And I think this is a good reason for him to stage this coup.
And given that 70% of voters backed Aung San Suu Kyi's party, how do you think the public will react to this? She's called on them to protest.
The public is not going to like this at all, but you know, we have to remember that Myanmar, as the rest of the world, is now facing coronavirus pandemic, and many of the districts have been under lockdown, and it will be very difficult for her supporters to organize themselves.
There has been widespread condemnation across the West, but China has simply noted what's happened. How do you think Beijing will respond to these events?
Beijing will not respond. I think Beijing will say that it's internal affairs again. We have to remember that in 12 January, Chinese delegation met with Min Aung Hlaing, and they discussed in depth about this so-called fraud elections. And it's my guess that Min Aung Hlaing got a go-ahead, or at least endorsement from Big Brother, China, and the other big brother, Russia.
So how much influence do you think Western politicians, and in particular the new administration in America, will have in Myanmar?
This is going to be a huge challenge for the new Biden administration. The Western community, or the international community, has not been dealing with Myanmar in a principled manner. I think the UN has also it has some responsibility. UN has been awfully quiet. We had seen never again. We have heard that phrase many times, but we have seen under Aung San Suu Kyi's watch genocide, and we've seen crimes against humanity.
And you know her a bit, I think, given
yes.
She was obviously detained for 15 years. How do you think she will be viewing this latest detention?
It's not going to be easy for her because now she is more progressed in age. And of course, she has gained not that much popularity in the Western or the international community. So I think it's going to be a very difficult time for her.
And just finally, what are your fears for Myanmar's future?
It is really an assault against democracy. And the people have suffered so much. And I think I'm sure that the people will suffer more. And this is not just the Rohingyas, it'll be all the Rakhine, it will be all the ethnic communities, as well as very innocent civilians.
Yang Hee Lee, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.